Hey everybody, John Skiba here, and in this video I'm going to talk about some of the myths that are associated with bankruptcy. Specifically, whether you can get a car loan, a credit card, even a mortgage after you file for bankruptcy. There's a lot of bad information out there, and in this video we're going to tackle some of those issues. If this is your first time here to my YouTube channel, please go ahead and click subscribe. That way you'll be notified each and every week when I put out new videos that will help you deal with your serious debt problem. All right, let's talk about bankruptcy and some of the myths that are out there when it comes to what it does to your credit score and your ability to recover from it. Now, obviously, filing for bankruptcy should never be taken lightly, and I don't ever sugarcoat it that there's definitely consequences to filing. What I have found, though, is that most people, what they're imagining is going to happen and what actually happens to their credit score once you file for bankruptcy are usually two different things. This is largely just because this is what you hear in society in general. You hear this from Dave Ramsey. Again, I'm a big proponent of Dave Ramsey, but I often think he oversells what the damage is to filing for bankruptcy and what it does to your credit. So the main thing that you need to understand, first of all, most of my clients, I've been doing bankruptcy law for almost 20 years. What I see is usually the credit is pretty damaged. Most people don't come into a bankruptcy with pristine credit. There's some exceptions to the rule, particularly when we see medical issues or sometimes business failures. But usually people are coming into a bankruptcy, they've been battling debt for a while. So we tend to see a lot of charge-offs, collection accounts, maybe lawsuits that have been filed, that kind of thing. All of those things have made the score really low generally already. So filing for bankruptcy in and of itself, if you have a credit score below 600, you're probably not going to see a whole, much more damage done. The damage has been done. And what's surprising to most people, and I've seen this with my clients, is that when the bankruptcy is filed, you actually will start to see an increase fairly quickly. Now, I'm going to be talking about Chapter 7 bankruptcy specifically. There are different chapters like Chapter 11 and Chapter 13. Most people that file bankruptcy overwhelmingly file a Chapter 7. So I want to focus on that today. When you file Chapter 7, it takes about 4 to 5 months for the case to work its way through the court and you to receive your discharge order. There's two important dates in your bankruptcy: the day you file it and the date that your discharge is entered. The discharge is the order from the judge that says you no longer owe these debts. Now, when it comes to your credit score, most people that file Chapter 7 that had scores below 600 prior to the filing of their bankruptcy case, they will be at near a 680 credit score within 60 days of filing. You may ask yourself, how is that even possible? The reason is the things that they are used to calculate what your credit score is specifically things like the delinquencies, the past due balances, the amount of credit that you're using. After you file for bankruptcy, here's what your credit report looks like. The creditors will still be there that you had, but the balance will be zero. All the other information will be taken out, and it will say that it was included in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So all of the negative information that's been depressing your score all this time, it's all of a sudden gone. Now, there is, in the public records section, you will see a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. That'll show up, and that impacts your score. But overall, the things that have been keeping your score down the most, the delinquencies, the large balances, collection accounts, those all of a sudden have just disappeared, and so your score can go up. So the question is, what does that do what does that do to lending? Now, I'm going to focus on three areas. We're going to look at credit cards, car loans, and mortgages. With credit cards, you should be able to get an unsecured credit card, meaning there's no collateral, no secured credit card, once you hit about a 640 credit score. And so if you've already hit that 680, your case has been discharged, 60 days later you're up to a 680 or around there, you're likely going to be eligible to get an unsecured credit card. Now, early on, your interest rates may not be great, they may be actually really horrible. But if the card is there and could be used for emergencies if needed be, but you need to be responsible with it. It's important to remember any accounts or any debts that are incurred after you file for bankruptcy, you can't include them, and you can't file bankruptcy for another 8 years. So you have some real serious consequences. So you got to be very careful with credit post bankruptcy filing. What about car loans? One thing that is surprising and kind of annoying to a lot of my bankruptcy clients is after we file their Chapter 7 bankruptcy, they get inundated with car loan advertisements through the mail. These companies come in, they buy lists from the court of people who have filed, and those are the ones they're focusing on. So there's a big concern, hey, what if I need to get a car after I file for Chapter 7? There will be numerous lenders, and these aren't just the bad lenders. I can tell you, I practice here in the Phoenix area, some of the top dealerships focus on people who are coming out of bankruptcy. And the reason is again, 60 days out of bankruptcy, you should be about a 680 ish, around there. You should have a higher credit score. Not only that, you're actually a good credit risk. They're assuming that most of your debt's been eliminated. And two, you can't file bankruptcy again for 8 more years. So they're in a decent position to learn, particularly on a car loan, where they're loaning on something that's secured, where there's some collateral. Now, car loans generally only require a credit score of about 580. They're not a real risky loan in general because there is collateral that they can repossess if you're not paying it. You're just going to get better interest rates the further you get up from that 580 credit score, which if you file Chapter 7 bankruptcy should rebound quite quickly. Now let's talk about the big loans, the mortgages, refinancing, things like that. This, a lot of people think, if I file bankruptcy, I'm not going to have a house. I know the bankruptcy stays on your credit for 10 years. That means I'm not going to get a mortgage loan for 10 years. It's not true. Like FHA loans, you can get 2 years from the time that your Chapter 7 bankruptcy is filed with the court. So that's not even the discharge. Private lenders, they're going to be all over the place. But you need to look like FHA first and then really shop that around. If you filed bankruptcy or you're needing to file bankruptcy and then you're thinking about a home loan, shop that around. Get out of the bankruptcy, get the discharge. Generally, I recommend people wait at least a year, 2 years, even 3 years with some lenders, but it's not a 10-year sentence of not being able to get a mortgage loan. You will be able to do that. The important thing is that you reestablish your credit after the bankruptcy is filed. You can't just file bankruptcy, get everything wiped out, and then don't do anything to try to reestablish credit. You need to have payments that you're making on time to things like car loans, home loans. If you have a car going into bankruptcy, you can reaffirm that debt. That's beyond the scope of, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about reaffirmation in this video, but during a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you can reaffirm car loans where you're agreeing to continue to pay on that. If the court approves that reaffirmation agreement, they'll report that to your on your credit report, so all those on-time payments will show up. That'll help reestablish it. The main thing is don't get new credit and then default on it. That will be disastrous to your credit. And not only that, then you don't have the bankruptcy option like you did before. So I hope that helps kind of clarify some of the myths that are out there related to bankruptcy, credit scores. It's not a great thing, obviously, to have to go through the bankruptcy process, but it's there for a reason to help people that are dealing with some very serious debt problems. And not only that, you're going to recover much more quickly than you think you will. The people that I see where their credit scores stay low just year after year after year are the people who just don't do anything. They just let the collections sit out there. They're getting sued, all that kind of stuff. That's what will keep your score down. The bankruptcy deals with it once and for all and helps you to move forward. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching today.